You know when your stomach's just doing like flip-flops in the morning and you haven't even had breakfast yet?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine how our furry pals feel when they're throwing up yellow foam,
Oh, absolutely.
especially our Shih Tzu buddies. It's definitely a cause for concern, but don't hit that panic button just yet.
Right.
We're diving deep into this today, guided by Vanessa Lee's experience with her Shih Tzu Billy, as detailed in the article, My Shih Tzu Vomiting Yellow Foam. This piece really resonated with me because it blends, like the personal anecdotes
Hmm.
with expert advice, which is what we're all about here.
Yeah, for sure.
Giving you that information that you need in a way that's easy to digest.
It's so true. Feeling overwhelmed, it doesn't help anyone, especially when you're dealing with a pet who can't be like, hey, mom, dad, this is what's wrong with me.
Exactly. They can't use their words, can they?
No.
And that's where Vanessa's story, I think, is so helpful. She went through it with Billy, trying to figure out why he was constantly throwing up that yellow foam, which, by the way, that's bile,
Yes.
a fluid that helps with digestion,
Important, but not supposed to be seen.
not when it's coming back up.
Right.
And, she went the traditional vet route, which I think a lot of us do.
Of course, that's our first line of defense.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. But it wasn't until she actually delved into holistic care that she found some answers.
Yeah. And I think that resonates with a lot of pet owners out there where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we've done the standard stuff. We need to look for something a little bit extra, a different perspective.
Absolutely. And that's what I think makes this deep dive so interesting. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you should do, like right now,
Yeah.
if your Shih Tzu is experiencing this. Because let's be honest, seeing your furry friend sick, it can send anyone into a frenzy.
Yeah. It's understandable to feel panicky, but you're right. Like, first we need to breathe. Just take a moment.
Breathe.
Breathe.
And that's actually the first step that Vanessa highlights in her article. Don't panic. Easier said than done, I know.
Oh, absolutely.
But once you've taken that deep breath, she suggests a teaspoon of raw honey.
And I think what's interesting here is that she emphasizes raw honey. Like, not just any honey. It's the raw honey.
Right.
Because it has those unique benefits for soothing the esophagus, the stomach lining, all of that good stuff.
Interesting.
Which makes sense, right? Like raw honey, we know, has natural anti-inflammatory properties, all that good stuff.
That's so interesting. I feel like we're always learning these little things, these little details that can make a world of difference.
Totally.
So you've given the raw honey. You're going to want to give your pup's stomach a little bit of a break from food. Let things settle down for about an hour or so.
Let it rest.
And here's the tip, straight from Vanessa. About 10 minutes before you try feeding your Shih Tzu again, give them a bit of slippery elm.
Now, slippery elm, I know that sounds like something straight out of, like a fairy tale or something.
Right.
But it's actually been used for centuries to help soothe digestion.
Really?
Yeah. It basically forms like this protective layer over mucous membranes, and it just helps ease any irritation.
It's like a warm hug for your pup's tummy.
Exactly.
I love that. And the article actually, it stresses giving it before a meal,
Interesting.
which I thought was a really neat little trick.
Yeah. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Me neither. Now, before we unpack why this might be happening to your Shih Tzu, Vanessa offers one more immediate remedy, and this one, I have to admit, I was very interested in. She calls it doggy congee.
Okay, I have to admit, even I was intrigued when I saw that.
Right.
Doggy congee, what is that?
It sounds like something we should all be eating, honestly.
I'm kind of curious.
But we'll get into that a little bit later. Because right now, let's follow Vanessa's journey as she dives deeper into the potential causes behind Billy's bile vomiting episodes.
Okay.
Because sometimes a little detective work can go a long way. Okay, so we're on the case with Vanessa and Billy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're hot on the trail of what's causing this yellow foam situation.
Let's get to the bottom of it.
And one of the first things that Vanessa discovers is just how common an empty stomach is as a culprit.
Yeah, it makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
Because we know the bile is always there. It's always working. It helps with digestion.
Yeah.
But when there's nothing in the stomach to actually, break down, especially first thing in the morning, it can become more concentrated.
Oh, interesting.
And then it can actually irritate the stomach lining, which leads to that yellow foam you see.
It's like that feeling when you're like starving and your stomach starts growling,
Exactly.
Only I imagine way worse for them.
Yeah, because it's bile, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm hungry.
Right, exactly. And here's where I thought Vanessa's detective work got really interesting, right?
Okay, yeah.
She learns about varying her dog, Billy's, feeding times.
Oh.
So instead of like a strict schedule, she started feeding him at slightly different times each day, both morning and evening.
Okay.
And this helped prevent his body clock from like expecting food at a certain hour. And it actually reduced the chances of that bile buildup.
It's like outsmarting your body's rhythms, in a way.
Right. It's so simple.
Yeah.
But so smart.
Well, that's the thing, right? Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective.
Absolutely. Now, another thing that Vanessa discovered on her quest for answers was acid reflux.
Oh, okay.
And remember how we were talking about the bile irritating the stomach lining?
Mm-hmm.
Acid reflux can make this even worse.
Oh, so it's like a double whammy?
It's a double whammy for poor Billy's tummy.
Poor little guy.
I know, I felt so bad for him reading this.
Yeah, bile and then acid on top of it. Like, no wonder he wasn't feeling well.
No wonder. Okay, so this brings us to, I think, a really common point of confusion for many pet owners, even seasoned ones, right?
Right.
The difference between food allergies and food sensitivities.
Big one.
They might seem similar, but I think understanding that distinction can really make or break how you approach your dog's diet, right?
Absolutely, because you might be going down the wrong path if you don't understand the difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so let's break it down. What is the difference between a food allergy and a food sensitivity?
Okay, so imagine your dog's immune system, like a vigilant guard dog, right?
Okay.
With food allergies, this guard dog mistakes certain proteins in food, like let's say beef or chicken, as dangerous intruders.
Oh, no,
Right.
you're not.
So it triggers like a full-blown defense system. It's releasing histamines. It's causing inflammation.
Oh, wow.
That's why, you might see symptoms like itchy skin, ear infections, or even gastrointestinal upset, like vomiting, in allergic dogs.
So their body is basically like waging war
Sort
on
of.
something that's supposed to be nourishing them.
Exactly. It's like a misfire, right? Now, food sensitivities, that's a little bit different. It's less about this immune system, like freak out,
Oh, wait.
and more about the digestive system simply not processing certain foods efficiently.
Okay.
So it's more like the stomach saying, ugh, not this again. I can't break this down.
Okay.
And so then that can lead to symptoms like gas, bloating, diarrhea, or, yes, you guessed it, vomiting as well.
Okay, so both can cause tummy troubles.
Yes.
But one is like an immune response and one is a digestive, like...
Exactly issue. You got it.
Got it. Okay. But how do you know which one your Shih Tzu is dealing with? Because that's where things get trippy, right?
That's where things get tricky. And unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something that's super helpful called an elimination diet.
An elimination diet?
Yeah.
What is that?
So it sounds very intense, right?
Yeah.
But it's basically you're playing detective with your dog's food.
Oh, okay.
You're eliminating all of the potential allergens from their diet for a set period of time, usually several weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and then you slowly reintroduce them one by one
Okay.
and observe for reactions.
So it's literally like a process of elimination?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a commitment,
I bet.
but it can be a game changer in identifying what's going on.
Okay.
Now, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, that seems like so much, Vanessa actually found a solution
Yeah.
that she really, really resonated with, and it's called a rotation diet.
Right. We touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about this, though. What exactly is a rotation diet and
Okay.
how did it help Billy?
Yeah. So a rotation diet is basically a more proactive approach to managing potential food sensitivities.
Okay.
Instead of sticking to like the same protein source, chicken, chicken, chicken every single day, you switch it up regularly.
Okay.
So maybe, for example, you give your dog fish on Monday, chicken on Wednesday, lamb on Friday. You're making sure that their system isn't getting overloaded or overly sensitive to any one thing.
That makes so much sense. It's like diversifying your portfolio, but for your dog's diet.
I love that. I love that analogy. And Vanessa actually noticed a significant improvement in Billy's digestion once she implemented this rotation diet. He was less prone to those bile vomiting episodes.
Wow.
And his overall energy levels improved.
Amazing.
Now, are you ready for a little bit of a twist in our doggy digestive tale?
Lay it on me. I love a good plot twist.
Okay, this one involves venturing into the world of traditional Chinese medicine.
Ooh, TCM.
TCM.
I've always been so fascinated by this. Tell me more. Tell me more. How does this relate to Billy?
So in TCM, they believe that good health really stems from a balanced flow of vital energy. They call this qi.
Qi.
Yeah, it's pronounced qi.
Qi. Okay.
And this energy, it courses through the body, right, including the stomach,
Okay.
And just like an unbalanced diet can, disrupt our digestion, TCM practitioners believe that an imbalance in the stomach's qi can lead to issues like vomiting.
Fascinating.
Particularly that yellow foam that we've been talking about.
So it's not just about the food itself, but it's also about how well your body's energy is flowing to digest it.
Exactly. It's all connected, right?
So interesting.
And according to TCM, several things can disrupt the stomach's qi.
Yeah.
We're talking about irregular eating habits, stress, and even consuming too many cold, raw, or greasy foods.
Oh, wow. That makes you think twice about, like, those table scraps that you're,
Yeah.
like, oh, come on, just a little bit.
Little bite. It's all about moderation and balance, right?
Right. Now, while all of this is super interesting,
Yes.
exploring natural remedies and, alternative approaches like TCM, Vanessa's story also highlights something else that I think is really crucial. Knowing when it's time to consult a veterinarian.
Absolutely.
Because, let's be real, as much as we love our home remedies,
yes,
sometimes you just need a professional.
Sometimes you just need that expert advice.
It's like, don't try this at home.
Right.
But for our furry friends.
Exactly. Don't just go to Google and be like, oh, I read this, so it must be fine.
Exactly. Yeah. And while Vanessa had a very positive experience exploring these holistic options, she does emphasize that it was in addition to consulting with her vet, not a replacement.
Right. It's finding that balance.
Right, exactly. And a good veterinarian will help you do that? Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what were some of those, like, see a vet red flags that Vanessa highlighted in her article?
Yes.
Because I have to admit, I'm one of those people, like, at the first sign of a sniffle, I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to go to the doctor.
Oh, I totally get it. Better safe than sorry.
Exactly.
Right. So Vanessa really stresses that, okay, like, the occasional upset stomach, that might not be a reason to run to the vet, especially if your dog seems otherwise healthy.
Okay.
But there are a few things that, if you see this, it's an automatic, like, get to the vet.
Okay, like what? Give us the rundown.
Okay, so first off, if the vomiting is frequent, or it continues for more than 24 hours. So if it's persistent, that's when you pick up the phone.
That makes sense, because I imagine that can lead to dehydration.
Yes.
Which is a whole other can of worms that you don't want to deal with.
Exactly.
What else?
Okay, so also pay attention to what's coming up, literally.
Okay.
If you see any blood in the vomit, that's a major, major red flag.
Okay, blood, check. Anything else we should be looking out for?
Lethargy. So if your dog is usually, playful, wants to go for walks, do all that stuff, but suddenly they're just not interested in their favorite toys, they don't want to go for walks, or they're just, like, way more tired than usual.
Yeah.
That's a sign that something might be off.
Okay. So it's like a change in their normal behavior.
Yes, exactly. If they're just not acting like themselves.
Noted.
Yeah, get them checked out.
So if the vomiting is frequent, there's blood, or our furry friend is just, like, super down in the dumps. Time to call in the big guns.
Exactly, you got it.
Perfect. Okay, so we've covered so much ground today.
We have.
From those immediate steps that you can take to, like, ease your Shih Tzu's discomfort to the deeper dive into potential causes and solutions. But before we wrap up, what are some, like, key takeaways you think our listeners should remember from Vanessa's experience with Billy?
For me, I think the biggest one is the importance of being proactive.
Okay.
So don't wait until your dog is, like, constantly throwing up yellow foam to start thinking about their gut health.
That's so true.
Right. A healthy gut is the foundation of overall well-being.
It's like they're a reflection of us.
Exactly. And that's something that, we always talk about for ourselves, but it applies to our pets as well.
It's so true. It's so much easier to, like, maintain good health than to, like, try and play catch up once things start going haywire.
100%.
I love that. And I think that's where, Vanessa's experience with, like, the elimination diet and the rotation diet is so fascinating because those are things that, they might seem a bit daunting. Yeah.
At first, but
it's empowering though, right?
Yes.
Because you're taking control of their health.
Exactly. It's like you're being your dog's health advocate.
Yes. Love that.
And speaking of advocating for your furry friend, let's circle back to that final thought you had about consulting with your vet, right?
Yes.
So what's the best way for our listeners to approach that conversation
armed
with all of this new information? Because they've been listening, they're taking
You're
notes.
taking notes, they're ready.
They're ready. They're going to go to their vet and be like,
I have questions.
I have a master's in this now.
Right. So I think the most important thing is just to be open and honest with your vet.
Okay.
Share Vanessa's story.
Talk about the specific symptoms that you've been seeing in your Shih Tzu. And then don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yes.
A good vet will appreciate that you're, one, being proactive,
Right.
and two, that you're coming to them with this information. And they can work with you to create a plan that's tailored specifically for your dog.
Beautifully said. It's about finding that vet, too, who values your input, who respects your desire to explore all options, and ultimately, partners with you to give your furry friend the best possible care. And sometimes, as Vanessa discovered, that might involve thinking outside that traditional kibble bowl.
Yes, 100%. Keep an open mind, explore different perspectives, and remember that every dog is different.
So true.
What works for one Shih Tzu might not work for another, and that's okay.
It's all part of the journey.
It is. It is.
Well, to all of our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive into the world of Shih Tzus and yellow foam has given you some valuable insights.
Yes.
And a renewed sense of confidence in navigating your own furry friend's health journey.
Absolutely.
Remember, knowledge is power.
Yes.
You're your dog's best advocate.
100%.
Until next time, happy tails, everyone.
Happy tails.